Okay, let's dive right into this. If you've looked at a screen at all today, you've probably felt that deeply familiar wave of absolute information overload. Am I right? We are living in this hyper-interconnected, often totally chaotic snapshot of history that is literally updating by the second. So in this explainer, we're going to decode the 24-hour global news cycle by looking at one single extraordinary cross-section of today's headlines. We're going to take this massive wall of noise and break it down logically. We want to understand exactly what is happening in our world right now, and more importantly, how it all connects together.
You know, we recently saw the passing of media mogul Ted Turner at the age of 87. And as the quote points out, he really pioneered the modern 24-hour news culture when he launched CNN way back in 1980. Before that, the news was just an appointment. You sat down at 6 p.m., and that was it. Today, it's an atmosphere we all breathe. We're examining today's barrage of information through the lens of Turner's legacy. It's a machine that never ever sleeps, constantly feeding us triumph, tragedy, and literally everything in between.
So before we get too deep into the weeds, let's clearly define what we're actually looking at here. The news cycle is that relentless 24-hour flow of global information encompassing conflict, nature, politics, and culture. And the really crucial point to remember is that this cycle doesn't categorize itself for us. It presents a massive geopolitical crisis right next to a pop culture event. To truly grasp the state of the world, we kind of need to artificially pause this flow, structure it, and examine the core themes driving today's global narrative.
Section 1. Escalating global flashpoints.
Right off the bat, two massive concurrent military actions have put the fragile Gulf ceasefire in serious jeopardy. First up, the U.S. has attacked an Iranian-flagged ship, and simultaneously, Israel has launched an airstrike on Beirut's suburbs. That's the first one since the April ceasefire, by the way. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated it targeted a senior Hezbollah commander. These definitely aren't isolated incidents. They represent a sudden, sharp spike in regional volatility, where the sheer determination to maintain pressure is pushing the whole region closer to an all-out conflict.
To put the terrifying speed of modern warfare into perspective, let's look at the timeline of that April 8th bombing raid in Lebanon. At 14:15 in the afternoon, the bombs start falling. Just 10 minutes later, complete chaos and destruction have rippled across multiple Lebanese neighborhoods. Just 10 minutes! When we consume the news, we usually just see the aftermath, but structuring it out chronologically really forces us to reckon with how quickly life alters on the ground. 10 minutes is literally all it takes to shatter a community.
And we actually see a very similar velocity in political military posturing. Take the timeline of the recent Strait of Hormuz standoff. On day one, President Trump announces a military operation to guide ships through the strait. But just 50 hours later, he pauses the operation, which was dubbed Project Freedom. What you really need to take away from this is how rapidly the levers of global power are being pulled and then almost immediately pushed back. I mean, 2 days is an incredibly compressed timeline for both the announcement and the suspension of a major military operation.
Of course, these rapid escalations create immediate diplomatic ripples. It's like a massive domino effect. Notice how just the mere hope of a deal to end the US-Iran escalation caused oil prices to drop and stock markets to rise all over the globe. Plus, it creates these vacuums for other global powers to step right into. We see China calling for the strait to be reopened as soon as possible, with Foreign Minister Wang Yi holding direct talks with Iran's Iraqi. The global economy and international diplomacy are reacting in absolute real time to the military timelines we just covered.
Now, let's contrast those rapid flashpoints with the grinding dual reality of the ongoing war in Ukraine. On one hand, we're seeing quote-unquote robot wars. President Zelensky is claiming territory was captured using futuristic robots and drones, basically ushering in the highly technical battlefield of the near future. Yet at the exact same time, we're seeing a grim civilian toll in frontline cities. In Aleshki, civilians are trapped. They're debating whether to risk the road of death, having been cut off from fresh food and medicine for months. The modern news cycle demands we hold both of these realities in our minds at once, the sci-fi future of war and the devastatingly primitive human cost.
Further complicating things in the European theater is the sheer unpredictability of diplomatic agreements. Russia completely ignored Ukraine's unilateral ceasefire and continued their assault, which tragically included an attack on a kindergarten. This spurning of the ceasefire has obviously forced Kyiv to weigh immediate further actions. It really highlights how fragile international norms are right now and how fast a promised pause in violence can just evaporate.
Section 2. Nature and Unpredictable Crises.
While geopolitics are entirely driven by human decisions, our news cycle is constantly interrupted by forces totally outside our control.
Take the incredibly frightening evolution of the Cape Verde cruise ship crisis. We've mapped it out into 4 steps here. Step 1. The Andes strain of the hantavirus, which actually rarely passes from person to person, is confirmed on board. Step 2 is where the tension really spikes. We have the first death, yet passengers capture video on April 12th of ship announcements claiming the vessel is not infectious. Step 3, international intervention kicks into gear as British, German, and Dutch nationals are urgently evacuated. And finally, Step 4, the highly stressed ship routes to the Canary Islands, despite facing initial pushback from local authorities. This whole event just perfectly captures the deep claustrophobia and the rapid escalation of a modern health crisis at sea.
Alongside microscopic threats like viruses, we also have to grapple with massive environmental extremes. Recent research just confirmed a massive mega tsunami in Alaska, driven by climate change and glacier melt, making it the second largest ever recorded. Meanwhile, over in Bogor, Indonesia on May 4th, raging torrents from heavy rain caused a river to violently overflow, completely destroying a glamping facility. Both of these points illustrate the sheer, terrifying unpredictability of a warming planet crashing headfirst into human infrastructure.
So, amidst wars, fragile ceasefires, virus outbreaks, and literally mega tsunamis, what else demands our attention in the 24-hour cycle? Because as we all know, the news never stops at just the existential threats. Let's pivot slightly.
Section 3. Justice, Politics, and Power.
The news constantly feeds us updates on how we govern ourselves and maintain order. Domestically, the political machinery just keeps churning along. In a closely watched Midwest primary contest, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's noted as a staunch Trump ally, emerged victorious to win the Republican nomination for Ohio governor. Regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, this is a vital data point in the cycle. It shows exactly how regional power dynamics and political alliances are shifting in real time within the United States.
And then we have the continuous daily drumbeat of law and justice, both tragic and systemic. We see the final, very heavy resolution to a horrifying 2022 case where a former FedEx driver was sentenced to death for the kidnapping and killing of 7-year-old Athena Strand down in Texas. Internationally, we see massive, coordinated state action as German police raid neo-Nazi criminal youth groups across 12 different states. And, in a sudden snapshot of local violence, a shooting at a lake party in Edmond, Oklahoma, leaves 1 dead and 22 injured. All of these events serve to ground the sweeping global news cycle in the stark, everyday realities of human behavior and the ongoing pursuit of order.
Section 4. Culture and Humanity.
Some aspects of the news cycle often feel almost surreal when you place them right next to global conflicts, yet they are deeply ingrained in how we communicate and how we feel. Take fashion, for example. It's fascinating how the exact same medium commands our attention for wildly different reasons. I mean, think about it. On one side, fashion is being used as a tool of political statecraft. In North Korea, analysts are closely watching Kim Ji-woe's evolving outfits as a clear signal that she's being groomed the next leader. But on the other side, fashion is high society spectacle. The 2026 Met Gala fundraiser, themed costume art, generated massive cultural buzz by exploring fashion purely as an embodied art form.
And of course, the news cycle always leaves room for the delightfully bizarre. You honestly can't make this stuff up. Take this story. A French academic has been suspended from his university and is currently under investigation. Why? Well, for allegedly dreaming up a totally fake academic prize and then subsequently awarding that fake prize to himself. It's these strange, deeply human moments of hubris and absurdity that pepper our daily feeds and provide a brief, almost comedic respite from all the heavier headlines we've talked about today.
We're gonna end today's cross-section on a note of pure empathy. Down in Kenya, an orphaned baby hippo, who has now been named Bumpy, was found clinging to its lifeless mother at a lake. Bumpy is now safely being hand-reared by sanctuary keepers. You know, amidst all the high-level geopolitical strategy, the massive market fluctuations, and the political primaries, the news cycle still prioritizes the rescue of a single, vulnerable animal. It's a nice reminder that compassion is still a fundamental, vital part of the global narrative.
So we've gone from missile strikes and virus outbreaks to political elections and a baby hippo named Bumpy. And all of this was derived from a single snapshot of today's headlines. This brings us to a final, slightly provocative thought I want to leave you with. When history is unfolding this relentlessly, and every single global event is just one swipe away from the next, how do you choose what truly matters? How do you actually navigate the real-time flow of history without losing your footing? Thank you so much for walking through this explainer with me today. Keep asking those tough questions, keep looking for the structure hiding behind the noise, and I will see you in the next one.